Hi, my name is Marcus Black.
My name is Kyler.
Hi, my name is Luis Hernandez.
Hi, I'm Julie Porter, and I'm a pastor's wife and an adoptive mom of 2 boys from Uganda.
My upbringing was Christian.
I'm from the southeastern part of Oklahoma in the Choctaw Nation territory. So we have a lot of Native people within our community.
In Guthrie, there wasn't very many Black people in the whole town.
Not a lot of diversity in the community.
Not the best neighborhood. A lot of gang violence going on.
Not much diversity. Very religious and structured.
Yelled at, called the N-word in elementary grades, and pretty much throughout my whole life, that was just a norm.
And in school and elementary, I would get in trouble because I spoke Spanish.
The words that she said to me were kind of like, my mom said you're nothing but a N-word. So, that was the first thing. And then I'm pretty sure I had to go and ask my mom, what that was.
Growing up, it was mostly like friends with like racist jokes that I didn't take seriously until I got older and I realized.
Being a white Latino, a white passing Latino, and then people hear me talk Spanish, and then their whole character change.
My name is a very common Hispanic name, Jesus. My last name is a very common Hispanic name, Martinez. And so sometimes I'll get customers that'll come in, and it took me a while to understand it, but now anytime I'm asked these questions, I kind of just go straight with birthplace. They always ask me, like, I'll be helping them, and then they'll look at me and say, where are you from?
There are things that I have said that have really hurt the girlfriends in my life that are mixed, because I have, for some reason, I've thought that their lives are easier because they're lighter, and that's not the case at all. And again, this is in the realms of colorism. It's actually, and this is just something that I'm learning, it's equally just as difficult, if not more, in certain environments to be someone that is biracial, because there's just this like pain of feeling like you don't belong to either race.
A cousin of mine and I, we were going to get medication for his mom, my aunt, and she was very sick. So we're going to the gas station. Next thing you know, an officer gets behind us. 2 young Black males. You hear stories. I've never had this experience, but I'm like, oh, it's fine. We're not doing anything. The lights come on. After the lights came on, we stopped. He didn't approach us immediately. 2 additional cars came first. So now you're talking 6 officers. After the 2 additional cars got there, then they get out, officer approaches the car. This was a situation that really would shape my perspective for the remainder of my life, and even how I interact with the community around me now. Because when the officer came, the first thing he did when he let the window down was he asked for the license and registration, but the way he did it was one of the most degrading experiences of my life, because he asked for an Ebonics. For people who don't know what Ebonics is, you can Google it, but it's a form of broken English terminology associated typically with inner cities and minority communities. And so he was speaking to us in that way and accusing us, he was like, y'all can save us a lot of time, just tell us where the weed at, where the drugs I know you got. I've never done drugs in my life, so I'm like nervous. My cousin's getting agitated. Now at this point, dogs come. It's 2 drug dogs. And they're barking, and now the scene is getting a little chaotic. They're all in the bushes and, on the sides of the street as if we have tried to ditch some drugs. And so now, the officers, grilling my cousin, and they're going back and forth, and I'm getting nervous. I don't know what's happening. So, long story short, they wound up pulling him out of the car. And I really wanted to share this because it's important that people who have never experienced this understand. There's people who feel like, well, if you just do what you're supposed to do, if you would just comply, you wouldn't have these experiences. And to them, I say, I've never been a criminal. I've always supported law enforcement. I always supported military, never been in trouble, honor student, and here I am in this situation. And so an officer starts yelling. So my cousin's out. I don't know what they're doing to him. I just hear him hit the car. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's happening. And so they asked me to get out of the car. And so he's knocking on the window, and I don't know what to do because I don't want to move, honestly. I'm sitting here I don't want to move. And so he opens the door. When he opens the door, there are 2 officers yelling, but they're not yelling the same thing. One is yelling, get out. The other's yelling, don't move. So I'm sitting here because I don't know what to do. And I really I always share this part because so many people don't realize, like, when you're in that and it's chaotic and there's dogs barking and there's already this yelling happening and there's two people yelling different commands. So he winds up pulling me out of the car, bringing me around, slamming me on the car, pulling me, spreading. I mean, I feel like an animal. And all I can think is, like, this is not real. Like, this happens on TV. I've never experienced this before, right? And so gets through patting and doing all of this and winds up pulling me around the hood, slamming me on the car. They're searching the car. They got the dogs. And after this big ordeal, they don't find any drugs. Like, we told you this. And so they're laughing. They're getting a kiss. It's funny. They're getting a kick out of this. And literally, I'm just sitting here like in tears and shocked that this is happening.
The generic conversation at school, and then I go home and my dad, my grandma will be like, okay, so that's their rules. Here's our kind of rules for our kind of people.
We didn't even really go over Black History Month until I was in 8th grade. And that was very briefly. You learn Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and that's really it.
I think being ignorant is wanting to see the change, embrace the change, and then do the change. Whereas if you're racist, you're just spitting out hate and you're just, not wanting to see the other side or other people.
I grew up reading about Assata Shakur, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey.
Everyone's like, oh, they're so cute, but we're at this breaking point where they're transitioning from cute little boys to young Black men. And so I know we're at this point where it's like, oh, suddenly they're moving from cute little Black boys to a threat.
But I know the day's coming, and I dread it, where I have to let them know that the world won't see them the same. And I'm not saying that based on an ideology or political debate or argument. I'm saying that based on my life experience. I know I've experienced that multiple times, and I have to teach them to carry themselves a certain way. You have to be overly nice. You're already viewed as a threat, so you have to be overly docile. You have to be just overly compliant.
I'm not here to take your jobs. Like, I'm a hardworking person. I'm here to work hard for myself, my family back home, to be able to just do the best that I can to show them, like, hey, if you put your mind to it, you can get far in life,
Listen to understand instead of listening to respond. And so I think that's something that I really just want people to understand about me, is that I'm open and willing to have hard conversations.
What are subtle things that we white people are doing every day, or like a subtle word or a use of a sentence? Like, what are some things that are so small but hurt you so deeply?
How people really view us.
I'll ask them what's their point of view, see where they're coming from.
Glory to me looks like one of my crazy, colorful, abstract paintings, where just God shows up so differently. It's like a different side of his face shows up in every color, in every hue, in every brushstroke. It's like colors you almost can't explain.
Imagine my ancestors jumping around and cheering and dancing because their descendants are full of greatness and they won this victory.
The presence of God. And I think within his presence, there's peace, there's love, there's unity. There's no favoritism, there's no prejudice. So to me, that looks like when the glory comes, just a unity.
A picture of heaven on earth. That's the thing that we forget, that we can actually have heaven on earth. But it takes a whole lot of humility, and it takes the surrendering to our own pride and to our own experiences.
And when we think about glory in Scripture, it's the hand opening the door, and it's the Most High opening his door to his kingdom.
Glory doesn't come from God giving me two kids that look just like me. Glory comes when God gives me two kids that look like him, and that his glory fills the earth.
When I hear the word glory, when the glory comes is when we can all wake up and step into our passion, our purpose, and do exactly what we created to do, working together collectively to create something greater that affects all of us, so we can build a better future for our children and our grandchildren.